Hello, welcome back to my channel. Today, I'm going to be doing the first of my end of the year videos. This is going to be my worst books of 2019. So I'm really excited to be filming this. This is the first one that I'm doing for this series for a whole lot of reasons. Mostly just because I think it's cathartic to talk about the worst books that you read first. I have another video coming on my most disappointing reads, which were a little bit different than this. This is just books that I had basically no clue what to expect going in, and I just ended up really disliking. So without further ado, let's go. Editing Chan here. This video is full of spoilers, so if you don't want to be spoiled for particular books, I'm going to put timestamps in the description down below and you guys can skip ahead and not get spoiled for any of these books. But sincerely, every single book mentioned in this video has spoilers. If you don't want spoilers, don't watch the reviews for each individual book. First book is In the Unlikely Event by LJ Shen. I ended up giving this book 2 stars, and this has sort of severed my relationship with LJ Shen's standalone books. I'd already had issues with a couple of her previous ones. This one just really was the nail in the coffin to show me her standalone books are just not for me. So this book is about Aurora and Malachi, who made a promise back when they were teenagers that if they met again in the unlikely event, they would get married. They ended up meeting because Aurora travels to Ireland to find out more about her father. She didn't grow up with her dad, and she was always just really curious about him. He is deceased, but Malachi was someone that knew her father and learned a lot from him. So this story is about them getting together, hooking up, I guess you could say, for one night, and then they come back together years later by chance. But when they get back together, Malachi is an absolute asshole to Aurora. Aurora has no idea why, and she's upset because she wanted to honor this contract that they had. So many things were wrong with this book. I feel like I've talked endlessly about it, mostly because it was a pretty recent release. I think it came out in November of this year. My main issue really is that this just had endless and just ridiculous drama. So much drama. I like angst between my characters, and I can deal with some semi-ridiculous conflicts in romance, but this one was just over the top. One of the main conflicts is that everybody in the town in Ireland that Aurora travels to hates her for no reason whatsoever, according to Aurora. She has no idea why everybody dislikes her. She finds out near the end of the story that everybody hates her because her mother was the other woman. That's literally the only reason. Like, why hate a child for something that the mother has done? And on top of that, the mother and Aurora were both being domestically abused by Aurora's father. Instead of like looking upon Aurora with some sort of like, I don't know, remorse, like I'm sorry we didn't do more to help, you know, because it's a small town environment, everybody's just a complete asshole to her when she comes back. And it's insane to me. On top of that, one of the biggest conflicts in the book is the fact that Malachi is married to another woman and we're not sure where she is for the majority of the story. The reason that we don't hear about the wife is because she died. Yeah, she died. Not only did she die and leave behind a child who we find out is a secret child, she also decided to rape our male main character, and instead of treating this as a teaching moment and as something that should be handled with care, LJ Shen just kind of threw it in as an additional shit cherry on the top of the shit cake for our main character Malachi. So he's hiding a child, he's hiding the fact that he was raped by his ex-wife, he's hiding the fact that he didn't even want to be with his ex-wife. Like there's so many layers, and I'm sure you can understand just from the nonsense that I'm spewing out, because I cannot put this into coherent thoughts and feelings, that this book was just wild and stupid and really, really, really poorly done. The lack of communication between our main characters was just off the charts, and overall, I'm just really glad that I don't have to read this book again and that I am officially parting ways with LJ Shen's standalone books. It's crazy how good her series are and how much more care she takes with the storylines and in properly plotting things and not adding in these wild and unrealistic plot twists. In her standalones, she does not take the same care, and she also just makes her male characters, in my opinion, insufferable. I didn't like either of the characters in this. It was just really not for me. I would not recommend this book to pretty much anyone. My next worst book of 2019 was one that I guess you could also kind of consider disappointing. To me, I really didn't go in with a ton of expectations, but a lot of people were talking about this book, and it is A Curse So Dark and Lonely by Brigid Kemmerer. I ended up giving this book 2 stars. This book is one of those situations where it seems to be almost universally loved, and I just don't understand why. Because in my opinion, this book was purely mediocre. It is a fantasy story retelling of Beauty and the Beast by an author who typically writes contemporaries, which is important because you can tell. I think my biggest issue is that this story was really nothing new. I think our author attempted to add in new and exciting twists to the Beauty and the Beast tale, but didn't do a very convincing job. I think she wanted to have this sort of like urban fantasy setting like Holly Black and the Cruel Prince, where, you know, our main character is from the human world and travels into this fantasy world, but it just wasn't convincing at all. There was really no reason for there to be ties between the two worlds. It felt very underdeveloped. And on top of that, the story itself was just really nothing new. You have a Beauty and the Beast retelling where our main character has to go and be the true love of the Beast, and instead of, you know, a rose petal falling off and that he's gonna stay a beast forever, like in the classic tale, he ends up murdering people every single night until he finds his true love, which, I mean, that's great and all, but that was pretty much the only twist. I think there was also the addition of some sort of court politics. Our king or beast character is also warring with another nation, and they are planning on taking over his country, and he obviously needs to become a human being again to fix this. To me, those are not new and inventive takes on a classic tale. They're just lame. I don't even know how to get into it, really. I also didn't love our main character. I think that the cerebral palsy rep was really awesome, and I've heard from other people that it's really good, but despite that, I think our main character was a little bit irritating. I did not like the Beast character. The only, in my opinion, redeeming quality to this book was the third leg of a basically non-existent love triangle who was the best friend of the Beast, and it just overall not good. I don't remember the last time I talked about this on my channel. I think this might come as a surprise to some of you guys, but it is Love Me Never by Sarah Wolf. This one has a shocking amount of good reviews on Goodreads. I kind of get why, because it does have some entertainment value, but this is like the funny cousin of After by Anna Todd. This book is about our main character Isis, who is starting at a new high school after she has just dropped a ton of weight. I was just automatically turned off, I guess, by the fact that we have this character who kind of self-loathes. I don't think I properly communicated my feelings about this book, but I think my main issue with the whole weight loss component is that, number one, I guess it's nice in a way that our main character is showing that just because you lose weight doesn't mean you're necessarily going to have a better life or more confidence. I feel like it's too cliche to go from being the teased and ugly, larger bodied person to being the hot and everybody wants them sort of skinny person. Why can't we just have a larger bodied person who's hot and like develops and comes into their confidence? I would have preferred that a lot more over the story of you've got to get skinny to, you know, be popular and have the life you want. That was sort of, I guess, the message that I got from the story, even though our main character after losing weight is not 100% confident. She sees her life as better after having lost this weight, so that, I didn't like that message. It definitely, oh god, what's that show on Netflix? It gives me like Insatiable vibes. I don't know, I didn't like the message there, right? Anyway, she shows up at this new school and automatically starts butting heads with one of the most popular, hot, sought-after guys at school. At her last school, she was mercilessly teased by a really hot guy, and I guess she's having some sort of like flashbacks, and she's getting the same vibes from this new guy named Jack. And Jack just wants to be left the fuck alone. He really doesn't do anything to provoke Isis. Isis just thinks that it's appropriate to harass and belittle other people. So that is basically the gist of the story. Isis is just constantly trying to understand Jack more, even though Jack makes it clear from the beginning he just wants to be left the fuck alone. And that's sort of the endless cycle that the story goes into. She has ridiculous insults that she thinks up, which frankly are pretty entertaining, and that's why I thought this book was fairly funny, but the strange details that are thrown in are what make this book so bad. Let me count the ways. Number one, Jack's story. Once we learn more about Jack, we learn how ridiculous his story is. He is a 17-year-old high school student, and he is selling himself as a male prostitute, essentially, to pay for someone's medical bills. This is not a family member that he's trying to pay for. This is just some random girl. I think we're assuming that she was like an old friend or someone who used to be really into Jack. I think that's what it is. I think she had suicidal ideations because Jack didn't return her interest, and so he feels in some way obligated to pay for her medical bills by whoring himself out. I mean, I can't make this stuff up. It's wild. Secondly, there is an amnesia cliffhanger, which soap operas wish they could be this dramatic. There's a lot of other things I could say, but I don't want to spoil the book for you guys. If you want to go and check this one out, good luck. I don't recommend it. I gave this one 2 stars. 1 because I read it, and 2 because I did laugh a fair amount. So the next book on my list is Vandal by Carian. This one is also a real doozy. I really know how to pick my romances. I don't know what happened this year and why I picked up so many that were really just bad, but the theme continues. So this book is about a guy that falls asleep at the wheel. Really tragic accident happens, and he kills his daughter, who's also in the car with him, and he also kills an oncoming car, which I believe is just driven by one man. So he kills that man, he kills his child. So he goes to visit the grave of his child, and he sees a woman standing at the opposite grave, which happens to be the grave of the man that he killed. So this is the widow of the man that he killed. He sees this woman and he walks over, they start up a conversation, and after, I don't know, she is just grieving and sobbing, he takes her home, they sort of strike up a relationship and enter into a dom-sub relationship. This woman has no idea that this man killed her husband. And she doesn't know basically the entire time until I would say the last like 85% of the book, when she finds out and is thoroughly fucking pissed. Which, I mean, fair, right? Like if someone killed my husband, I don't think I'd want him to be my dominant. I think that was my main issue with the story. And not only is miscommunication something that is used time and time again in romance to piss readers off, we also get the added benefit of it being perhaps one of the worst admissions of something fucking awful at the very, very end of this book. Like, you're holding in this secret, and it's not just like a benign secret. It's not just like, oh, sorry, I don't like pickles. It's, I killed your whole damn husband. I just, like, can't make this shit up. I really can't. And I think even worse than that is the ending of this book. When our main character finds out, she decides to leave his house, try to get on with her life, and eventually, I think the last couple of pages, our main characters get back together, but it's uncomfortable and you don't feel that like sense of resolution. I'm not sure how she could have convincingly resolved the story in a way that I would have been satisfied with, but it was just not a great ending. Let me point that out. So the next book that I read was Sugar Daddy by Sawyer Bennett. This book looks so sugary and so fun. Let me tell you, it's really not. It is one of the darkest books I've read in a really, really long time, and there was just so much wrong with this book. This book is about a woman who was sexually assaulted in her teen years, and she is seeking revenge in a very big way. Her attacker owns a seeking arrangements, sugar daddy, sugar baby type website, and he, along with his business partner, are kind of playboys now. I think everybody's in their 20s by this point. So Seela makes it her life's plan to murder Jonathan, her attacker, and to do so, she thinks that she needs to be the perfect woman for him. She is going to meet him out at a club one day, and he is just gonna like fall for her, instantly want to take her back to his hotel room, and she's gonna murder him. Like, that is her game plan. So once Seela feels like she is ready, she ends up going to this club, and she's got, you know, she's all dressed up, she's ready to go, and she ends up getting stopped by Beck instead. Beck is the business partner. This is basically about Beck and Seela's relationship, but obviously it's a little bit more complicated than that. The main issue that really occurs is the fact that Seela, in the back of her head, is still thinking about revenge. She still wants to murder Jonathan, and as the story goes on, she sort of like develops and changes and decides that maybe murder is not her best course of action, but she always has this thought in the back of her head that she is going to get revenge one day. So obviously this is a problem, and this relationship is essentially built on a lie. She wants to get closer to Beck to eventually get closer to Jonathan. At the end of the book is really when everything comes to a head, and where this book really falls short, in my opinion. This book would have been excellent as a thriller, but having it peddled as a romance is really not, I think, the right way to take this story, because obviously Seela's lie is found out at the end, and we start to really fall for Beck. At the end of the book, we understand his relationship with Seela, and we really like what's happening there, but we know the other shoe's gonna drop eventually. And when Beck finds out Seela's secret, he kicks her out of his house in one of the most violent and brutal ways. I was not expecting this at all. You grow to like this character, and you know that there's going to be some sort of confrontation between Beck and Seela, but you really do not expect it to go to this level, especially when she has been sexually assaulted. He says he doesn't believe her and literally throws her outside of his house. It was horrible to read about. And like I said, had this been a thriller and had it been framed in a different way, I mean, she still could have gotten close in a romantic way with our main character. It would have worked a little bit better, like I said, as a thriller, but we're led to believe this is going to be a romance, but you don't just kick someone out of your house and deny the fact that someone is a survivor of sexual assault. It makes me cringe. I really was upset with this story. I really wouldn't recommend this one. There were pretty much no redeeming features of this story. I think the writing was okay, and like I said, I think the idea behind the story of this woman being empowered and getting revenge could have worked, again, really well as a thriller. Say it with me. As a romance, this was just really, really, really bad. Then the last book on this list, last of my worst books of 2019, is The Secret Girl by C.M. Stunich. I'm not sure how to say her last name. I ended up reading this for the reading rush, and I have very detailed thoughts on this book in those vlogs if you want to go check it out. It was an entertaining read, but it was also really offensive in my personal opinion. This book is about our main character, whose name I cannot remember because she was not all that memorable. She is the first girl to attend an all-boys boarding school. Her father is the dean of the school, and while he does not encourage her to dress as a boy, she takes it upon herself to dress up as a boy so she will perhaps not get teased by the other guys at the school. Unfortunately, that was probably the worst plan and worst idea ever, because she is ruthlessly teased by this group of really hot, steamy guys, and she basically, the entire story is trying to fight off their really, really lame bullying attempts and kind of try to not fall for all of these guys because they're just so hot. This seems to be a take on the whole reverse harem thing that's really popular on Kindle Unlimited right now, where one girl is basically pursued by a bunch of different guys and she doesn't have to pick between any of them. This one didn't work for me for a lot of reasons, and I can't exactly sum up the feeling that I got when when reading this, but there were so many instances where I felt touches of transphobia or homophobia. I don't know if that was our author's intention. I'm sure it wasn't, but just the way that the story was framed and set up did not work. We had guys wondering if they were gay because they were falling for this guy who is actually a girl, and once they found out they were a girl, they were like, oh, I guess I'm not gay, which I don't know. I really, like, I wish I could sum up what about this did not work and was wrong, but I also don't want people to read it to tell me why it was wrong. I don't want you to read this because it was bad. It was not a good book. And on top of that, there was this sort of half-baked mystery thrown into it, which really didn't work, along with the other ambitious storylines that our author was trying to include. Apparently, there was another girl that attended this school who died. She freaking died, and our main character was not made aware of that before she decided to attend this school, so that's fun. And then on top of that, there are too many male main characters. I understand it's a reverse harem book, and our main focus is going to be on our female main character whose eyes we are seeing from, but the guys that she's supposed to be falling for are all so generic, and I think there was only one guy who I wanted to know more about. So characters were bad, story was bad, touches of like phobia, not a big fan. Overall, the story was just a hot fucking mess. That is it. Those are my worst books of 2019. Stay tuned for the other videos in the series, my most disappointing books and my best books of 2019. Hopefully those will be a little bit more coherent and juicy, but thank you guys so much for watching. I love you guys so much, and until next time.